Okay, the Boks don't play this weekend. You would never know it though. Everyone talking about the Bok match 23 selection time. Bok 23 should be announced next Tuesday, so we still have a few days to debate it, to discuss it. Zels, we're going to talk more in depth about our Bok 23, the one we think Rassie and Jacques will pick. Had huge amounts of interest in terms of emails, comments, Twitter notes to me. A lot of people just loving you, mate.
Mate, that can't be true.
No, they love you.
No, that can't be true, mate.
It's like from Nels to Zels to Ricky to Frank, they just adore you.
I like how we got called culls, like we're a couple.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
Eh? And then they wanted to know, someone asked me, like, how did the show come about? We're into episode 24, 25 now. And I said to them, it was very simple. You and I talk rugby every day. We love talking rugby.
Yeah.
And we just banter. And there's no structure. There's no script. Every day we would talk about the game. We talk about the URC, the Currie Cup, what's happening internationally, obviously the Springboks. And then you said to me, hey, why don't we just put this on a podcast and chat? We just like two oaks in a pub at a coffee shop talking. And I think that is the rawness and the appeal of it. People ask if we script the show. No, we don't. We don't even know what we're going to talk about now. We're just going to start
Have
talking.
no idea.
All we know is that he might say, so I said about 30 minutes, he shows us to cut and we ignore him and we go on to about 40 minutes, okay? So hugely appreciated for all the love you've shown us. I don't think I've ever had so much love in a comment section talking rugby. It must be your charisma and your
Mate,
charm.
come on.
Today we're going to talk the Boks. We're going to talk Scotland, obviously, against Ireland. Rugby World Cup, what's coming up this weekend. A couple of tour tales, a couple of offbeat things as well. And just a couple of the comments that you guys sent in, some of the issues you want discussed or some of the questions you raised. We'll talk about that. But Zels, firstly, Lukanya Am. Please don't call him Lucky.
Oh, man, I've been calling him Lucky since 2014, so I'm probably not going to change.
All right,
Love
so
that
Lucky
boy.
it is. Okay?
What a gent.
And Franco Mostert, please don't call him Sos.
What is Faf's real name?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. Fafnatius.
Yeah, we do know that. What's Billy's first real name? Are we allowed to call him Billy? Are we allowed to call him Billy?
Mona.
I
don't know.
Mona LaRue.
Mona LaRue.
All right. Talking of Billy.
Yes.
Now we go from 2019 to 2023. This World Cup winning squad has mostly been kept intact. Incredible feat by Jacques and Rassie to take 90% of those players through, and they're pretty much in contention. Lutz at home, he's about the only one that's really missing. He hasn't been well, so we hope he recovers soon. This has been the tournament that Damien Willemse has surpassed Willie Leroux. Yes or no?
Yes, he has. He's been given opportunities and he's taken them, and I think it's been something that's been building for some time. I think if Willemse had been left in one position, he would have been a starter quite some time ago. And I think that's a massive credit to the quality of that guy, because lesser players in history have been given opportunities in multiple positions and the changes have crossed their wires and they've shorted out. And Willemse is not that guy. I mean, he plays at fullback and at flower for the Stormers. He plays at fullback and at flower for the Boks. And he's had some goal-kicking issues that he shrugged off. You know, he's had some criticism for it, and he plays through it. He's been part of successful Stormers teams and obviously successful Springbok teams. And you know, there's never been a thing where Willemse's disgruntled. You know, he wants to start at fullback. He's always said, "I'll play where they want me to start at flank. I'll start at flank." He just wants to play. So I think that guy deserves major credit. I think he's massively underrated and underappreciated, and he deserves to start for the Boks.
Are we seeing the Damien Willemse now with the swagger that we saw at Paul Riss for most of his high school career, SA under-18s, Province under-18s, the kid who started first year out of school for Province, scored that sensational try against the Bulls at Newlands. I think he sidestepped half the team. Played Super Rugby against Sonny Bull Williams and the boys, stood his ground. And we're going back a few years now, had a few injuries. I thought last year when he signed for the Stormers, or earlier this year, an extension of 5 years, it's the biggest signing we've had in South Africa. One of the most sought-after rugby players in the world decided he wanted to stay in Cape Town. He wanted to play for John Dobson Stormers. I thought it was a huge compliment to Dobbo.
Yes.
A huge compliment to what the Stormers culture is, the DNA of the Stormers, what they mean to the people. And a guy who, like you say, we've always felt that 12 is probably going to be his best position, ultimately. A guy who's traditionally played 10. They've started him at 15. Kind of they had to find a place for him. But as you say, when he's closer to the noise and closer to the action, even more effective. But he has certainly stood up and said, 15 is mine. It'll be very hard to overlook him for the quarterfinal.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, the only reason to not play Damien would be the experience of Willie Leroux. But I think Damien has surpassed any sort of speed bump that would keep him out there.
All right. Cheslin, everyone in agreement, he's there on the one win.
He's playing some of his best rugby too.
Interesting call on the other win. Kanan Moody or Curtly Orense?
Yeah, I like Kanan at 11. I like having at least one big bookend, and I think he's a big body who can look after himself and good under the high ball, physical.
You play him 11 or 14 and Cheslin goes to 11?
I play him at 11 with Cheslin at 14, but I mean, it's much of a muchness. You can have a debate around that. It's not a big talking point.
Okay, then early in the week, we both said Damien Dialandi and Jesse Curl will go with their tried and tested combination that's been playing throughout the World Cup. Interesting comments coming out from the Bok camp, though, after their press conference. Lukhanyo Am will be considered for the quarterfinal. Now, do you slot Lukhanyo Am straight in at 13-9? Just what an incredible rugby player. He's been in the system for 5 years with Rassie and them. He's short of game time, but he's not short of rugby intelligence. He's probably got the most in that back line in terms of how he organises defences, how he reads the play. You saw the reaction to the Bok players when he came onto the field at training. Sia gave him the big welcome, the hug, how he's lifted that team. Is it a case that they've said, if we've got him, we've got to stick him in there and see what he's got? Or do you say it's a bit of a red herring, he doesn't play in the quarterfinal, they hope they get through, and then he's definitely in for the semi-final?
Yeah, so for me, it's not so much about how much rugby he's played, it's how fit he is. It's how good that knee is. If that knee is good to go, there's absolutely no need to pause. Just push play, get him in. That guy, you've said it before, class is permanent. I've said it as well. Lukhanyo, for me, is the best outside centre in the game today. And so if he's available and he's fit, and I'm talking like 90% plus ready to go, I would play him.
As you said, 24 hours is a long time in rugby. It's a long time in our opinions. My opinion has changed already. I'm outside centre. When I saw him on the field, the news that's filtering back. I'm going to change my
mate, you're setting a precedent,
mate. I'm changing, mate. And Jesse, I'm sorry. I know you've really stood in well, but there's a reason you were 2 in the cab rank, and Lukhanyo is 1. If Lukhanyo is ready to go, pick him, and that's why I would pick Kanan Moody ahead of Curtly Orense, because if Lukhanyo can only last 50 minutes, Kanan Moody slots into 13.
Right.
And then obviously I would have a Grant Williams or a Reinach on the bench because they can slot in on the wing.
Yes.
And it kind of covers that.
Makes sense.
The guy, and we spoke about a Milnerton High, boy from is it the northern suburbs? Not quite. It's on the way to the west coast. Not quite, but it's in our. So you're in near your valley. You know him. You know the family. I mean, geez, I just don't think that Oak gets any of the plaudits that he's deserving of him. Damien Dialandi.
No.
When I looked at all the comments that came back, how quickly he was dropped and how quickly he was shifted. Some shifted him out to 13, some to 14, and some into the grandstand. And it was like, hang on a second. Damien Dialandi is the glue. He is so respected internationally. He's so respected by his teammates.
Yeah.
And he's a bloody good rugby player.
Yeah. You know, if you play in the front row, if you play prop, you just have to accept that people are not going to mention your name often. And when they do, it's going to be as the sort of kicker to a joke about your size. And I think inside centre in South African rugby is very similar. People are never going to understand what you do in South Africa. They're never going to appreciate it. And when you do what your coaches tell you and you play your role in the team, people are going to criticize you for it. And that's a reason, that is part of the reason why, even though I think Damien Willemse would add massive value at 12, I wouldn't play him at 12 because I don't think he's that kind of a guy. I think Damien has got too much, Willemse has got too much flash to get stuck in a job where he's got to be the target setter. In that mold, Dialandi brings flash. I mean, that guy is not just a crash ball guy. He does find a soft shoulder. He does use his feet. He does have burst. And it's phenomenal how it's almost like something out of Asterix. When that guy has people on his back, he just keeps going forward. It's like he's had a sip of the magic potion and there's at least 3 meters of go forward in every single collision. And that is massive. That takes huge stress off the pack and the scrum off.
And also, if we go back to 2019 World Cup semi-final against Wales, you'll see those clips showing to you as I speak. Damien Delandy turned nothing into something. Spectacular try in the context of the game. No one was gaining a centimetre, let alone a metre, in terms of the collision. He did it, and he's a big-time player. And I think that's something, because of the consistency that Rassie and Jacques have been together for 6 years with the Boks, and they've pretty much stuck with the same kind of team, same squad of players. We now see the difference between players who are one-hit wonders, players who come in and play the odd good game, not quite good for test level, very good at provincial level or club level, and then you get those players. And you used to see it a lot with the All Blacks in the old days, the Frank Bunces and the Walter Littles. They looked hopeless for the Chiefs in Super Rugby, but you put an All Black jersey on them in the big time, and my goodness, do they come alive. Damien Delandy comes alive.
Yeah, I mean,
he's one of those players that comes alive. When the moment comes, he's always there.
Yeah, big players make big plays, and that's Delandy. In the biggest games, he shines the brightest.
Which brings me back to another big player. We spoke at length about him. Andre Pollard. It's still the Manie Libbok, Andre Pollard. Lots of debate and lots of the feedback we got. What issues do you want us to address? What kind of topics? It's like, what's our love affair with Andre Pollard? Some even called us racist because we felt that Pollard should start and Libbok should be in the 23 and not necessarily starting, not out the 23. And a lot of people throwing great running meter stats at me, various other things. But this is a World Cup quarter-final. This isn't a rugby championship game that we get to go again next weekend. It's also not about who scores 4 tries to get the bonus point. We need one more point than the opposition to qualify. And I remember Eddie Jones saying to Jake in 2007, when the Boks had beaten England 36-0, Angleterre 0, Afrique du Sud 36. And England had started talking about, can the Boks do it in a final? And Jake was insistent they're going to score 4 tries and show the world that they can play exactly the same way. They don't change it. And Eddie, to his credit, said, mate, I've lost the World Cup basically by a point. Let's go and win one by a point.
Yeah.
And if it comes to an arm wrestle, they can't beat us. And his thing to the players was, if you walk out the tunnel and you look at your opposite number, one-on-one, is he better than you and could he beat you in an arm wrestle? No. Then we don't lose this game. Don't give them a sniff because you want to bring them into the game. One of the things that kind of made me chuckle was some bloke wrote in and said, you've got to play Manie Libbok against France because it's going to be the most thrilling game of the World Cup. They all play open rugby and attack rugby. France kicks more than any team in the world. They've kicked the most in the last 2 years. They don't play freestyle, free-flowing rugby.
Yeah.
If you look at that opening game against New Zealand had more ball. New Zealand had more ball possession, and they had more minutes on the ball. France had 62% of territory. New Zealand had 38%, and that was a definite one. France played it in the right areas, forced the penalties. Ramos took care of the rest. It was 2 tries each, 27-13. They slaughtered them. All the statistics pointed to, if you took away the final score, you would have said New Zealand won that game by 15 points. And that's why rugby statistics, the devil is in the detail in terms of context. Now, Pollard's percentages and percentage play, to me, is what you need to start a World Cup quarter-final.
Yeah.
And then the razzle and dazzle of Libbok, if and when needed. And also knowing that Pollard may not have the gas to go more than 60 minutes. You wouldn't want to start Libbok. He twists his ankle in the first 2 minutes, and now you've got 78 minutes thinking, this guy just will be fatigued on the hour. So, Rassie and Jacques, loyalty to the guy they know has done it before, or loyalty to the bloke they've entrusted in his absence?
No, I think they're definitely going to go with Andre Pollard. As I've said before, Rassie said it, 10, 11 years ago, Andre's going to the next 3 World Cups. So I've got no doubt Andre Pollard will play in the biggest games. And it's not because Andre Pollard is a better player than Manie Libbok in every single aspect of the game. That's not the point. The point is that if you're going to go racing off-road, you need the right tyres, you need the right vehicle. And in a World Cup, Andre Pollard is the right guy for test match rugby. Test match rugby, the margins are narrow because the stakes are so high. When Ireland play Scotland, the players in there are going to care a lot more about the outcome of that match than when Leinster play potentially Connacht. Because in a World Cup, you get one shot at this every 4 years. For some people, they get one shot in their career to win a World Cup. You know, in the URC, in the top 14, if it doesn't happen this year, you do it again next year.
Is Rassie playing games, though, when he comes out, or is he managing expectation till he announces the squad? When he says, easy there with the Pollard euphoria. Marnie's been our guy all season. Marnie brings a dimension. We're playing more attacking rugby than we've ever played before, something the fans wanted to see. Now, there was something interesting there, something the fans wanted to see, okay? Is he playing kind of a few
Did you
mind
just
games?
ask me, is Rassie playing games?
Is he playing a few mind games with
Is
us?
water wet? Of course he's playing games. That's what he does. I mean, that Wales test that we lost, that was Rassie giving the fans their team. You know? So I think a lot of this is about Rassie recognizes the value of Marnie Lebok, and he understands obviously the value that he adds in the counter-attacking game and the attacking game and the flair, and it's all there. But he knows better than anybody that when the margins are small, you want the guy that's going to play the numbers, and Handré Pollard, the boringness of Handré Pollard is what fits him for Test rugby. So I will be very surprised if Pollard plays second fiddle to Marnie Lebok, but stranger things have happened under Rassie.
Okay, now, other things that came into the discussion, scrum off. Faf de Klerk. You're
Please
a coach.
use his proper first name.
Yeah, you're a coach. You've got all your kind of level certificates, and you've coached all over the place, and you've been involved with some professional teams. Speaking from a coaching perspective,
Yes.
educate someone who may love the game out there, but doesn't necessarily want to or understand the nuances of it. What value does Faf de Klerk bring to that Bok team that the other scrum-offs in there don't, in terms of how they play?
Yeah, look, I don't think it's a very simple thing. I think most people probably understand that Faf is a physical. He's a physical terrier. He's a ball chaser. He's the dog that chases the postman. You know, and so there's work rate there, and he doesn't back down. You know, I think it was him on Billy Vunipola, that one-on-one tackle against England in their 22. That's the kind of thing that Faf can do. And Faf has 0% doubt in his mind. Like, he would have probably gone up against Goliath with no stones, you know? That's Faf's kind of vibe. So it's nice to have a guy like that operating behind that Bok pack. And he also has a lot of experience. And I think his just his optimism and his can-do attitude definitely adds value to what the Boks do. I think it's a good morale booster and all of that sort of thing. He's quite outspoken. You know, even when he's taken a punch to the face, he's smiling. So there's value around that. If you compare a guy like Faf to a technician like Jaden Hendrickse, who I think is very much a playmaking number 9 with a great tactical boot, also a little bit of off-the-ball edge that you got to like, but maybe not as dynamic physically at the point of contact as Faf de Klerk. And then Grant Williams is obviously pure explosion. The guy can score from anywhere because he just needs a half gap and he's gone. He's grease lightning. And then Kubis is an experienced guy and probably a bit of all of them, you know, a real all-rounder. Like I say, has that experience, has been there, has done that, and gives you a little bit of what all of those guys can do. Good kicker, big boot. He's had some issues early on in his career in terms of aiming that sniper rifle, but now he seems to be pretty much on point. And speed. And understands the game. So they've got a nice blend of guys there.
Yeah, I mean, we're very blessed to have a quartet like that. You also got a guy who did play well, Herschel Yankees back here, who's been on standby, and some very good young scrum-offs coming through the mix.
Yeah.
Faf's value to the Bok defensive system in terms of the way we play the press and the rush. Talk me through that.
Yeah, so in the past, I wouldn't say we've seen it as much recently, but in the past they'd use him as a blitzer. So around the fringes, he'd have free range to go and chase down the scrum off from behind, or, you know, come out of the alignment and chase the ball. He was a real intercept threat. And what that does is it disrupts the timing and the rhythm of the attack. Because the whole point of the attack is based around what you know the defense is going to do. You plan around it. So when the rhythm of that defense changes radically, and that's part of the sting in the tail of this rush defense, is to actually just take away time completely for decision making. When you have a guy that's being a maverick in that system, and the defensive team knows it's coming, so they are prepared to cover for him, then it sort of you roll the dice when you pass the ball, because that guy's loose somewhere. It makes you second guess. You look over your shoulder, and that buys the defense some more time.
Why does Faf get the raw deal among certain support base as he does? If I look at social media, is there just not an understanding of the system that he's playing to, or is it that if you look at someone like Jaden Hendricks, who is a very good quality scrum half, who kind of has the complete game, doesn't have the experience yet, but people see that and go like, why are you not picking that guy? Why are you picking that guy? What is it about Faf that he's not getting the kudos that he
I think it's the same thing that makes him so popular with some people. Like, some people like a gambler and some people don't. And I think it's as simple as that with Faf, is that sometimes he gambles and it doesn't come off. And then the people who don't like gamblers say, we can't have this guy. This is ridiculous. He's out of control. And then sometimes he gambles and it does come off, and everybody does like a gambler, says, this is our man, Danny Ocean, let's go.
So you're still in agreement, Faf has to start, non-negotiable?
Look, we're at the point at this World Cup where the starters effectively choose themselves. You have to have Faf there.
And the guys who have been there and done it before, they won the World Cup in 2019. They won a British and Irish Lions Series. They won a rugby championship.
Yeah.
You want guys who look at the opponent and say, we've been where you are today, and we've been further.
Yes.
And that experience is, I remember Jake saying to me in 2007, or 2004, when he bought Percy Montgomery, Oster run back, and he had that core under 21 players led by Skalkberger. He said it was a lot easier to convince the youngsters that they could beat anyone when they were looking to their left and right. And it was two blokes, one who had won a World Cup in 95, one who had kicked so many records up until that point, Percy Montgomery, had beaten the All Blacks in New Zealand. It just galvanizes a team. It gives them a lot of strength mentally going into kind of like a quarterfinal. And we can't stress enough, this is a playoff game. Which is something New Zealand's coaching staff doesn't seem to understand. Something New Zealand rugby didn't seem to understand for 24 years, which is why they never won a World Cup for 24 years.
Yeah.
That no one really cares about the 4-try bonus point.
Yeah.
And if you've got to kick an 80th minute drop goal to win it, as they should have done in 2007 in the quarterfinal defeat to France, no one's really going to care either.
There's no trophy for ball in play.
No, there's no trophy for ball in play. And we're going to get to a little bit about the game's dynamics after we finish with this team discussion. So our backline at the moment would be then Damien 15, 14-11 interchangeable, Kanan and Cheslin. We put in Lukanya and back in at 13 straight away. He's the Rolls Royce. Damon Diolandi, I mean, he's the 4x4 and he's inside. Andre Pollard, what would you say? He's a forward.
Forward focus.
Hey, he's a forward. And at nine, we've got
Faf, the Fafinator.
Jimny.
We're going with cars, okay.
Going with cars. Yeah. Oh, Jesus, took you a while to get
there.
Sorry,
mate.
Excuse that I'm not supposed to say any of those kind of words. I don't want to offend anyone. But if I do tell my tour tales a little bit later, I may offend you with some of the kind of, if I'm going to have to quote people as they said it to me. We'll wait for that a bit later. So our backline is complete for now. And I think by and large, with the exception of the Lebok-Pollard debate, people are in agreement that is the Settlebach team backline that will start against France in the quarterfinal. Front row, again, complete. France Malaba, just no comparison in South Africa. This guy, we're only going to really know his value when he's no longer there. Bongi, you've been saying it for a while. His biggest crime is that he's played in the same era as Malcolm Marx. In his own right, one of the best hookers in the world.
Underappreciated, fantastic player.
And a fantastic leader.
Yeah.
And in Marx's absence, he's been given leadership opportunities. He's captained the side on 2 occasions. And he's really come through this year in terms of improving his whole all-round presence in the team. And then Lou said, the Ginger Ninja, wow, strawberry blonde, call him whatever you want. He's just a machine, Stevie Kitsoff.
Yeah.
And what I'm loving about the fact is they are giving him the starts. They're saying to him, from the outset, you go in and you do your thing.
Mate, that guy needs to put him for some leave because he just plays every single game.
I just can't see him in an Ulster jersey, I must say. I hope when they do play the Stormers, he just kind of pulls out for that one and comes and joins us on the side. So that's the front row. Eben, obviously, one of the best in the world, one of the best he's ever been.
And I think he's going to elevate his game now. You know, people have been kind of watching him say, well, you know, he's there and thereabouts. I think Eben is about to just actually just open the can and go. I think it's coming. I think Eben is about to kick into another level, and during the playoffs, I think we're going to see the best of him.
And then you talk about underrated players. Your favorite.
Sosie
Mostert.
Yeah.
Just, is that not one of the unsung heroes of Springbok rugby?
Look, it took me a while to come round to his value. When he was at the Lions there, I was also like, I don't know, what does this guy actually do? But when you actually keep your eye on him and see the work that guy gets through, I mean, he builds a pyramid on his own, that bloke. He gets through a ton of work. And I think that's what underpins that Bok pack. There's a lot of workers in that pack. Jasper Wiese is another guy who kind of fits that mold. Is not the flashiest forward. There's no Bobby Skinstad there, but gets through a lot of work.
But if you take Sos, do you think what has been kind of counted against Sos was that they played him at flank, they played him off the bench? Because of his versatility, there may be games when, I mean, the running lines of a flanker are a lot different to the running lines of a lock.
Yes.
In the defensive kind of alignment, so much different.
Yeah.
That again, we talk about nuances in a game, and then the criticism of him in the past may have been harsh based on just what he's offering the team in terms of options and versatility.
Yeah, it just goes to show what a good player he is, because generally nobody would have played Victor at number 7. I know we had Mark Andrews at 8 in that World Cup final, but Sos is a guy who's so valuable to the cause that when there was a better number 5, they found a place for him at number 7. And that's not because Sos is a 7. He's not Willem Alberts. He's not that kind of player. But he adds so much value to the team and the production that's required to make this machine go forward that they found a place for him in flank. Obviously, he got a bit exposed in the wide channel there in the one game, but he is a net gain. Having him on the field is a positive in every respect, whether he plays 5 or 7.
No questions. This guy starts. He's the combination. In the absence of Lurt, it's Sos and it's Eben.
Yes.
All right. Then I watched a little documentary the other day and a couple highlights clips. Siya Kolisi. Wow. Heineken Meyer had that guy carrying tackle bags in 2015 at a World Cup. That was only 8 years ago. You talk about a coach giving a player an opportunity, trusting his leadership qualities. I mean, Rassie Erasmus's biggest success story in his career, his legacy will be Siya Kolisi. The fact that he took over in 2018, he picked Siya Kolisi, he made him his captain. It was in no means a political decision.
Yeah.
It was recognizing the charisma, the presence that he brought, and then the support structure he had with veterans like a Dwayne Vermeulen and Eben around him, and obviously some of those bruisers in the front row. But wow, that Bok team with him at the front is just so different to any other Bok team I've experienced. And that's since 1992 when I did my first test when the All Blacks played against the Springboks at Ellis Park. I have never known a leader as inspirational, charismatic, and as popular as him. And I've never known a guy who can really take it up 30-40% than what we see from him at club level. He is born to play test rugby.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that Siya is perfectly fitted out for 2023 Springbok rugby. I mean, or 2019 to 2023, right? He is exactly the right guy to lead South Africa at this point in history. And I'm not talking politically. I'm just talking about his charisma, the way he fits into the team, what he brings as a player, the setup of the different clubs, and how he is somebody that the players can respect without being an old fogey, you know, and an untouchable guy who can't be approached. He's the perfect candidate for that job. But I also think that Rassie rolled the dice in some regard with Siya when he made him the captain, because it was at a period of Springbok history where there was a bit of transition, right? You had Flo leaving, or not Flo leaving, but you had Skalkberger retiring, and there was like, who's going to be the next open side? And Siya has taken the opportunity with both hands. Like, that guy has emerged as a premier open side flanker in world rugby. And like you say, he plays his best rugby at test level. When you've got doubts about what he's doing at the Sharks and there's question marks about, his form and his fitness, you put that green jersey on him and bang, he's there, ready to go. Huge ball carrier at test level, and just an athlete, comes back from that injury, blazes 40 yards up the field. Just phenomenal.
And the way they play him as well, and from the outside there's been that honesty from coach to player. Siya Kolisi's role is to go out, to lead that team out, and to empty the tank. And if that means 35 minutes, 55 minutes, or 75 minutes, that's when they pull him. He shows them he's got nothing left. It's not just in the captain must play through for 80 or whatever. What they have got right with those starters is you give us everything because we feel we got very good players coming off the bench. So here's there, Peter Steph du Toit. We've seen signs of the player who won the World Player of the Year in 2019. He's been injury free at this World Cup. That's been one of the big blessings.
Yeah.
That pack. We're going to get to number 8 now. That 7 is also unanimous in everyone who wrote in said that's the 7 that starts.
Definitely.
No questions. And I think that is also a compliment to how they've kept these players conditioned and how they got them to potentially peak next weekend. 8, the big discussion point. Do you go with the brute force of Jasper? He's into his second season. Do you go with the calm, charismatic Dwayne at 8 and then bring Jasper off the bench? We'll talk about the substitutes bench now. Have you changed your mind from a couple of days ago? Is it still the veteran, the old man who plays for the big moment, Dwayne Vermeulen?
Yes. So, I mean, between his ears, Dwayne is arguably our best forward, right? He's basically a coach on the field, fantastic player, hitman, great ball carrier. The only question with Dwayne is how many Ks has he got left on the clock before it's time to take the old bird in and trade it in for something else. So, I'm a huge Dwayne fan, always have been. And for me, these are the moments that you bring this guy to the box squad for. If you're not going to play him in these moments, like I said before, why is he there? He would be my number 8, absolutely.
And in terms of impact, Dwayne to empty the tank or Dwayne to come in and close a game?
No, I don't like having an old guy come off the bench, you know? It takes a bit of time to get rolling when you get older. And when you come on with 20 minutes to go, you don't have 4 minutes to get everything rolling. So I like Dwayne to start. I think he has the respect of his peers and opponents, and I think that there's value in that. And early on, when you need to make key game management decisions about what to do to put yourself in a place where the other team is chasing the game, that's the kind of guy you want there.
All right, so we are consistent and we're in agreement. We think we've picked a super 50, and it won't vary much from what Rassie and Jacques will pick. The bench, again, you go with the 2 props and a hooker. Trevor has to be there. He covers 1 and 3. Dion Fourie has now shown enough with his man of the match performance to be the reserve hooker. And Ox has come through as well, and he's been injury free. Are you happy that that's the?
Yeah, look, I'm not particularly happy that we've got Dion at hooker, but he did great last week. And
I can understand.
It is what it is now. So,
well, who do you want to put there?
Exactly. So
I'm saying in the context of who's at that World
Cup. There is no option. Literally, there is nobody else.
Okay, but Markov and Staden or Dion?
No, it has to be Dion.
Okay, so Dion's the reserve hooker.
Yeah.
Okay. The big thing of the makeup of the bench is, do you say we go in a 6-2 split, because I think that's where they will go. It
has to be, yeah.
Do you go with Jasper as your loose forward and 2 locks, Jean Klein and Ergir Snyman, or do you go 1 lock, Ergir Snyman, and you bring Kwache or Markov and Staden to complement what Jasper can do? That to me is the talking point, is that kind of bomb squad, back 5 options. Which ones do you go with?
Yeah, so I would go with Kwache, not necessarily because it's not about Kwache. I just think that squad is heavy on big ball carrying forwards. And so if you go 6-2 and you have a Kwache, in an emergency, he can cover a backline position. He does bring a fetching, low to the ground, turnover operator into that pack mix from the bench. He adds that value to the bomb squad. If you put Jasper there with Ergir and with Jean Klein, you've got 3 guys who are very much in a similar mold. Obviously, Jasper's not a lock, but I'm just saying they can find a ball carrier. If Dwayne goes off and we've got to bring somebody on at 8 there, with Ergir, Jean Klein and Kwache, there's a solution that still makes that pack what it is. I think if you had Jasper there and someone like Sia goes off, I think it changes the dynamic of that pack. It becomes quite monochrome. It's a lot of it is the same kind of player.
These are some difficult decisions for Jacques,
Yeah.
and probably the hardest ones, Jacques and Rassie, to make, in terms of France should be the quarterfinal opponent. Physically, we hurt them in Marseille. Do you pick the heavies to hurt them for 80 minutes, or do you understand the game may open up a bit in the last 20, and then you want the acceleration, the pace, the unpredictability of a Kwache, or do you basically want them to get bludgeoned by another?
I think from the last time we played them, you saw the French were bailing. After 20 minutes, they'd had enough. So by 60 minutes, we're not going to need to bring on any more heavy artillery. You can have the machine guns. Bring on Kwache Smith and take advantage of the work that's already been done.
So do you play just the one lock on the bench? Ergia?
No, I'd have
Klein?
Ergia and John Klein.
Okay, and then you don't pick Jasper on the bench?
No, I'd take Kwacha.
And you don't pick Marco van Staden?
No.
All right, those are interesting calls.
Yeah.
You guys can email me all your love for Zels, or you can abuse him in a nice way and say, how can you leave Jasper out? This guy was just telling me how brilliant Jasper is, and now he's left him at the match 23.
Yeah.
I do recall you leaving Damian Willemse out a couple of months ago, but I think I caught you off guard there.
Yeah, I can't remember what day of the week it was. But
it was terrible.
I think I had sinus.
Yeah, I was terrible. Okay, but we forgive you for that one. This guy loves Damian Willemse. I love Damian Willemse. If you love rugby, you're going to love Damian Willemse. We were critical of him 2 years ago because we felt he wasn't realizing his potential while he's blossomed with opportunities.
Yeah.
A huge kudos to John Dobson for that, the Stormers, and then obviously for Rassie and Jacques to backing him and giving him playing opportunities. The Boks play next weekend against France. It's quarterfinal time. We'll still have lots of discussion on social media about that 23. I think really it's 2 or 3 names that are the talking points. Pretty much everything else is settled. The focus this weekend, the big one, it's Scotland against Ireland. Ireland haven't lost to Scotland in 8 matches. Ireland have been very vocal this week saying, do you really think we would even consider throwing or manipulating the flow of the game to get the Boks out? It could be us going out. It's starting to build in such a cool way. Everyone's saying, hey, we're not doing anyone any favors here. Rassie loving it, sitting back and watching the circus unfold. He's followed Scotland and he's followed Ireland on his Twitter feed, the only 2 followers he has. So I love the way he kind of gets into everyone's head rent-free.
Yeah.
And there's also the potential there for Ireland of injuries. This is going to be... We had that hard game against Scotland first up, and I think it really put us in a good place come the playoffs. Questions that I got asked again. People wanting to ask Zels this. Finn Russell, Johnny Sexton. Talk us through that showdown.
Yeah.
And your view of both players.
So I think, Johnny Sexton is a way better fit for Test rugby in the same way that Pollard is a better fit for Test rugby than Marnie Lebok. I think Finn Russell shares some profile characteristics with Lebok. You know, also a playmaker, a maestro, can pull the strings, can do the unthinkable. To unlock a defense and send somebody through. A Sexton probably a little bit more boring, but more consistent, more dependable, and on Saturday the winner. So I think Sexton's a guy who plays to the numbers, kicks the points, and he's no slouch in the running game. A physical runner himself, a lot like Pollard. So I think there's quite a good comparison between the two there.
Here's a little stat: Johnny Sexton has not lost to a Scottish team at club or international level in 12 years.
Wow.
And he's not going to lose on Saturday.
No,
I can tell you that much now. And he says his biggest regrets was that he couldn't make the British and Irish Lions tour to South Africa. Not because he was injured or concussed, but he wasn't picked. And this World Cup is about making a statement to Warren Gatland and to everyone else, because Finn Russell was picked, Marcus Smith was brought in, Dan Biggar was picked, Owen Farrell was picked. But the best 10 in the Six Nations, Johnny Sexton wasn't picked.
Wow.
And I think if Gatland could get his time over again, he would certainly have a player of that kind of experience. Finn Russell, someone asked me the same question, Finn Russell or Johnny Sexton, and I answered, it's like asking me Marnie or Pollard. I'd always go for Pollard in a tight playoff game. They then asked what I had against Finn Russell. I said nothing. I'd go have a pint and a pie with him every day.
Oh, mate, you'd struggle to get any in there.
Exactly. But when it comes to who I'd want there, it would definitely be Johnny Sexton. And really, in that game against the Boks, wow, we hit him off the ball. We hit him in the ball. He got up every time. Damien Delaney ran over him probably every 3 minutes.
He's a hard bugger.
He is a hard bugger, and mentally he's so strong. And
he'd make a great Bok 10, that boy.
No, and yeah, he is cut from that ideal Bok 10 kind of like mold, possibly with a bit more intelligence than what we had in the past. But reading Paul O'Connell, Andy Farrell's comments, they said what has defined this Irish team from Irish teams in the past, that they've taken the emotion out of their game, and that they are mentally very unemotional. Because Ireland used to survive on passion and fire and a home crowd, and after 60 minutes they'd shot their bullets, shot their load, and it was over, and then there was nothing to cuddle. This Irish team is a lot better than people will give them their due for. I include myself in that. And I thought, again, that they were outstanding, how they came through that Bok game. I can't see Ireland taking a step back against Scotland at all.
But that's the key, is they won't take a step back. That pack will dominate Scotland.
And I think they play a more threatening phase type game than South Africa does.
No,
and
absolutely.
that will trouble Scotland. The last time they met, it was 22-7 to Ireland. That was in Dublin. As we said in the other show, they've met 5 times in this World Cup cycle. They've lost 3 in Dublin. They've lost 2 at Murrayfield. The average score, 25-15 at home for Scotland, losing, 25-11 away. 25-13 on average. That's a 12-point split. I'm going with Scotland to lose. I'm going with Ireland to win, 28 points to 15. A 13-point margin. I think it's consistent with the strength of these two teams on neutral ground. I think learn from history, take that one. Ireland to win comfortably. It's not going to be a flash game. It's going to be a very physical game, but it will be Ireland in the quarterfinals.
I agree with that 100%. I had Ireland to win this by 10 to 15 points. So, I mean, that scoreline sounds pretty much on point to me. I concur.
Thanks. I love it when we concur. What we have also concurred on is that the game may be radically different to the 1980s, but it's not really all that different, okay? Perception is a bastard because perception is so often presented as fact.
Yeah.
Now, a good mate of my partners, Gillian, is one man who dominated Survivor. I'll call him Survivor Graham. And he's a huge, huge rugby fan, loves a debate, follows the game, watches videos lots. He once asked me how many times I watch the video, and I said, sometimes I don't even watch the game. But no. Shocked. But you just wrote 700 words on it. I know. Which game did you watch? None.
I wrote it before kickoff.
There was a funny time a couple of years back. I had to do a Curry Cup game in this watered down Curry Cup. Sharks against the Province, and I was at a braai. But it was my deadline it was basically for the Monday. And this bloke was looking at me and he was saying, like, what did you think of the first half? And I said, what first half? And he said, the Curry Cup final. I said, oh, who's winning? He said, but I buy the paper on Monday to read you.
Yeah.
And I said, don't worry, I'll be watching it in the morning. So calmed him down a little bit there. But Graham he's been wonderfully supportive of us as well, and very kind in his that's Graham Jenica, by the way, and very kind in his praise for us and the questions that he asked. And he said, Mork, I want more of Zels. I want more of you guys, because I'm even scraping the barrel. I'm even watching the breakdown now. So and the breakdown is John Kerwin, Jeff Wilson and Mills, and well, all magnificent rugby players over different eras.
Yeah.
JK, for me, the finest right wing to ever play the game. I grew up in an era where he was kind of like one of my... Carl Duplessis on the left wing, JK on the right wing.
Beautiful.
When they played together for that Southern Hemisphere 15 at Twickers, I was in win heaven watching those two guys. 1987, he scored that 80-meter try against Italy. What amazes me is the ignorance that he speaks with about the game, in terms of not having an appreciation. In the latest installment, he said, forget about South Africa, the Africans as he calls us. They don't want to score tries. They just want to kick. We scored 20 tries in 3 games at this World Cup. It's like, hang on a second, guys. Or maybe to 22 in our 4 games. We scored 5 against them at Twickenham, against the All Blacks. John Kerwin's 1987 All Black side was one of the great All Black teams. Their forwards were outstanding in that era and dominated. When they lost in 1991 in the semi-final against Australia with Campo and throwing the overhead pass, Tim Horan scoring the try, the end score was 16-6. New Zealand's efforts were 2 penalties in those days. Now, he talks about speeding up the game, what the public want. Forget the sin of what the public want. Rugby is a sport that many, many years ago, the makeup of it was, it's brutal, there's a scrum, there's defense, and there's kicking. If you want a game that people want to watch, change the nature of the game and call it something else. But this thing about, they say time is a great healer, but time also is a great memory loss. Because people who say in my day, in the 80s, wow, when the ball was so free-flowing, the ball was in play for so many minutes, and it was just tries. In the 80s, mid-80s, and we'll give you some stats, the 1987 World Cup, you had 45 lineouts on average a game, and you had 30-plus scrums. You had 45 tackles made a game to today's 90-plus tackles made a game on average. The ball wasn't in play for a lot, and field position, 48% of the time they were kicking for field position. Now it's 32% of the time. Defenses were pretty much unstructured. We didn't have substitutes back then, so that also brings in the fatigue element. You also didn't have line-out lifters, and you had a lot more contesting. So the efficiency, 70%, 68% I think it is, for the line-out wins. Now it's in the 90%. But your tackle, if you're making on average 45%, 45 tackles a game, and you're only succeeding with 70 of them, it could explain Campo running through everyone nearly every week.
Correct, mate, correct. All due respect to those guys, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near the tackle point in the 60s, 70s, 80s. But if you got your hands on the ball and you were able to catch that thing without dropping it because it was so slippery, if you didn't cut the line, what were you doing out there?
I mean, your butts could have gone through it.
You could coast through that backwards nowadays. I mean, that's a joke. I mean, it's literally one guy in front of you. He's the only guy who's trying to tackle. He's got no support. You step off either foot, you through the line. So it was a lot less of a structured game because it wasn't professional. And we weren't in an era where there was videotape and guys cutting it and analyzing, okay, well, how do we become more efficient in defense? You can't just have one oak defending on his own in the middle of the field. And with that analysis came more structure, and with that structure came more organized defenses, and then you had to get smarter about how you break down defenses. And there's technological advancements, the ball became easier to catch, blah, blah, blah. And they've gone out of their way to change the shape of the game through lawmaking. And I think in that, this is a whole nother debate, but in that, rugby lost its way a little bit, because the reason it's called a try is originally when you dotted the ball down over the line, you got a try at goal. You got to shoot at goal. A try was worth 0 points. Now, because we've got this whole horde of weekend warriors who are rugby fans, they think the game is about scoring tries. The objective of the game is not to score a try. The objective of the game is to score more points than the other team. And they've tried to weight tries to make it more of an incentive. And as is always the case in rugby, when you try and incentivize one thing, you actually incentivize the thing to stop that. If you make a try with 50 points, trust me, the defense is going to make sure you never score a try. And that's why I've always campaigned for make tries worth less or make penalties worth more, because you'll see more tries that way. If that's what you want to see, that's the way to do it.
Make a penalty worth 9 points, no one will ever infringe.
No hands in the ruck.
You will just
never offside.
You'll just have no one committing to that breakdown whatsoever.
True.
Talk me through, and look, all my family roots are in New Zealand. I'm a huge lover of the country. They all live there. Cape Town is my home. My mom was a Kiwi. My dad had the Irish roots. I love the All Blacks almost as much as I love the Springboks. John Kerwin, as I said, one of my favorite players. Just love everything that makes a quality, good All Black side. But when did this arrogance just step in that if it doesn't work for the All Blacks, the world must change the game?
Yeah.
Because I go back to 2007. Graham Henry's response was, we'd rather lose a World Cup final than win it with a drop goal. Okay,
Jeez.
That was 2007. 2011, they won it with a penalty. 8-7.
8 points.
8 points to 7 because they picked a makeshift kicker, Perry Wipu,
yes,
who missed 2 penalties in the conversion in the first half an hour. They would have been 17-0 up. They were then 7-0 up, 5-0 up. Stephen Donald came on and kicked it 8-0. I went back and looked at some of those statistics from that match. 11 offloads to France, 4 to New Zealand. 15 lineouts each. Both lost 2 lineouts. Scrums pretty much even. Territory possession even. A lot more kicking from New Zealand. No one was complaining in New Zealand that the game needs to change because we can't have an 8-7 result in a World Cup final. They took it. That All Black team that went on to 2015, and they were outstanding in dismantling France. 62 points to 13 in Cardiff. That was their payback for 2007. But equally, the Richie McCaw side played some of the most brilliant rugby to down one of the most heroic efforts from the Springboks and win 2018. Dominated the opening 40 minutes of the World Cup final. Australia came back because of a yellow card to Ben Smith, and they closed it out with just intelligent percentages rugby with a general, Dan Carter, playing it.
Spot on.
That, to me, no one was talking about ball in play, 4 try bonus points, crowd support, what the spectators want. They wanted the victory. Does it need New Zealand to not win a World Cup for another 24 years before they get some common sense back into their thinking?
Probably. I think the only teams that ever talk about playing with flair and belittle the idea of playing percentage rugby are the teams that lose a lot. You know, generally teams that are struggling to win try and justify their lack of success by trying to claim the moral high ground somehow in rugby. The exception there is probably the Lions. You know, they didn't win Super Rugby, but they certainly overachieved. With the stock they had, they did great things. And I think Uckers and Swayze did an incredible job there of baiting the hook that other teams just couldn't resist. And they absolutely fell for the trap and tried to outrun the Lions, and the Lions ran them to pieces. To great success for 3 years, but it's not sustainable because eventually people come around to it. Sustainable success is achieved by physically dominating opponents, playing low-risk rugby within reason, and creating situations where the opposition have got the ball and have got the onus to try and get themselves out of a cul-de-sac. And when they gamble there, that's where you get the ball and do great things.
I never realized that you were such a big Lions fan, or you follow them so closely, but well done for that. You guys asked a lot of questions, so we've spoken at some length. You also asked for a tour tale or two. I'm going to end off on a tour tale, but before that, I also just want to give 2 beautiful examples of, one, why we love the box, and also why we love this oak, Zels. So Kirsten Marshall, who heads up the rugby at Sax, was a big inspiration to my boy when he was at Sax, at a very difficult time for him when he had a bad rugby injury. He contacted me and said, my stepson's in France with his brother to watch the game. Any chance of getting hold of Rassie, and for his birthday, maybe he can shake Rassie's hand and meet 1 or 2 of the players? A little message through to the roster. He got them to the captain's run in Toulon. He made their day. He kind of let them watch the captain's practice pre-Tonga, got them to meet most of the players, and Rassie, really appreciate that.
Beautiful.
We always speak about the box being the people's team, kind of bending over backwards and making an effort. You really made 2 guys who aren't particularly young, you made their days. And from Kirsten Marshall, he said, if I do speak to you publicly or privately,
Beautiful.
A huge thank you. Then this guy, when Italy was playing against the All Blacks, was not watching that game live. He went out to Durban to watch a 4th team final because a schoolboy that he had coached in 2002 at Tableview High was still playing and was playing in a final, and he had asked for his old coach to be in the stands while he showed he still had it. Talk us through that one.
Oh, it was beautiful, man. Great to be back on the club scene. I was surprised by the turnout. They made a tunnel. The crowd made a tunnel for these Oaks to run on the field. There was some star power there. Damien Delendi's brother Aiden was there and played number 8 for Hammies against Durbal. And I'm not going to talk to the quality of the game, but Durbal came out convincing winners. And my mate Henry Temple had a good game. Came on at hooker, and he was part of the winning team. So he's got a trophy and he's a champ.
Well, here's to Henry Temple. Well done. We're going to end with the tour tale. I was with the box between 2000 and 2003, headed up their communications. It was a terrible time for Springbok rugby, but there were some funny moments, and one of the funniest was Andre Markgraf, who was the assistant coach, and adore Andre as well. Very eccentric character, though. We were playing in a must-win game against France. We had lost the first test at Ellis Park. Second test, we had to win, and it was a brutal game. Harry Fulina coming with these wonderful ideas. That all went out the window the minute we lost. And it was backs to the wall. It was just physically the Rassie thing. We got to F them up. We went out there. There were a couple of yellow cards in the game. It got down to 1 score at the end. And I'm in the coach's box with Marquis and with Harry. And Marquis is on the big walkie-talkie, and he's screaming. To Jake, who's running the thing. I think Jake's on another frequency at that stage as well. But he's screaming, "Tell Butch to get the ball, force the penalty." He's talking about Butch James.
Yeah.
Kick it to the corner, force the penalty. We're going to kick these 3 points. We're going to win this game, Marky. I'm telling you, we're going to win this game. There were about 3 minutes to go in the game, and we're on attack in Durban. And I eventually asked him, why do we want the 3 points? This is all in Afrikaans.
Yeah.
En hy sê, want ons is 2 punte agter. And I said, nee Andre, ons het 2 punte voor. And he's like, oh, fuck. So, we won the game. We didn't need the penalty, but it didn't give me great confidence that at that stage, the Bok assistant coach didn't know we were leading the game by 2 points going into the final 2 minutes. He thought we were actually behind. We'll chat next week. Enjoy World Rugby World Cup this weekend. Zels, it's always been a pleasure. Imad, the wonderful producer who has to put it all together. I'm sorry about the length.